Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Tuesday, May 27th. Derek Van Riper, Eno Saris here with you. On this episode, we smush our typical Monday episode and our Tuesday episode into one, thanks to the long weekend. It was nice to watch a little baseball and have the extra day off, but tons of baseball news you should know, including a trip to the IL for Alex Bregman and for Michael King. Tarik Skubal tossed a gem on Sunday. We'll put that into some context. We'll talk about some of the where the money went this weekend, the pickups from the weekend, who actually was added, and what kind of impact will they make. And then we've got a guest coming up later on in the show. Joshua Rodrigues will join us a little bit later on as we dig further into some of the new hitting and swing data that became available last week over at Baseball Savant. A lot of ground to cover today, Eno. Let's start with the news out of Boston. Alex Bregman goes on the IL with a quad strain. He suffered that while running the bases on Friday. It opens the door for Marcelo Mayer to make his big league debut. He came up over the weekend. We'll get into Mayer in just a minute. I think with Bregman, even though the Red Sox haven't put a specific timetable out there that I've seen yet, this sounds more like it's going to be several weeks as opposed to a short IL stint. And he had a similar injury back in 2021, cost him 58 games in Bregman's own words after having the MRI. He said that he was pretty severely strained. To me, that's kind of like grade 2. If I had to translate that into the number of an actual diagnosis, and grade 2 is usually more in that 4 to 6 week sort of range. So all of that is to say, as you look at this Red Sox team, which will not move Rafael Devers back to third base, could have been the funniest thing if they had just gone that route. How do you see the Red Sox getting by? Is it a heavy dose of Marcelo Mayer, or is it going to be a little bit of a rotating cast of characters from some of their bench options?
I think the weekend tells us that there'll be a lot of Marcelo Mayer. There's a chance that Roman Anthony somehow comes into this mix, I think, because you've had some Christian Campbell playing center and first. It's just there's neither one of those are positions that Roman Anthony's played, but just watch where he's playing, I would say, because there seem to be moving parts around to see what will stick. I don't like that this is a strain that Alex Bregman has had before in the same leg, and that was a 2.5 month stint last time. So no matter what he says, and I watched the thing happen, I didn't think it was as big a deal. I mean, he just rounded first and motioned to the bench, and then off he went. But he went off on his own. He wasn't like helped off. I thought it wouldn't be that big a deal, but seeing now these details, I think it will be a big deal. I'm happy for all my Marcelo Mayer shares. I took a lot of them. I will say that I believe that the scouting report is that Mayer has a bit of a hole down when it comes to breaking pitches, and so I think the strikeout rate will be a little bit higher than the 19.7% he was showing at AAA this year. But I like the 111 max EV and the 48% hard hit rate. So I think it'll be a little bit more like a OBP slugger, low batting average type than you might expect, given the 20% strikeout rate. But I think Mayer's good. I think Mayer's good. I think he's got the ability to hit the ball hard, and he doesn't miss a ton. And I think it may take him a couple of games to get up to speed. I mean, did you read the piece by Jen McCaffrey about what his day was like? He apparently hadn't been driving his car, so he had no idea where his keys were.
Yeah, he lost his keys a few weeks ago and was like, I don't really need my keys. And then got promoted and needed the keys to make the drive from, I think it was Worcester to Boston. So one of the clubhouse attendants for Worcester offered to make the drive, I guess. And pretty fun story to get
like police escort and arriving while the fans were arriving. So I don't think he got a lot of prep time. I think he was, probably calling his parents and arranging for tickets and all sorts of things like that. So I think when things calm down, he'll be a guy who strikes out around league average, has a decent eye. I think his idea for getting rid of that hole low is to not swing at them, So, and I think he has enough of an eye that you can kind of think. So I think he's the primary benefit from this injury. And I think he'll get like a month to go at it before they really start discussing other options.
Yeah, Mayer did not get the Doug Mirabelli treatment. Doug Mirabelli, of course, famously got that police escort to catch the late Tim Wakefield. That was, we need a catcher that can handle a knuckleballer.
That was when they traded him away and then they traded back for him.
Yeah. Yeah. Classic moments there. As far as the short-term appeal goes, I think the role, as you described it, is big enough. I think if you were looking at pickups this weekend or you're in a first-come, first-serve league or Meyer's still out there, probably could make an impact down to a 12-team league. It's not out of the question. He hasn't played a lot of third base in his career. Most of his time in the minors has been spent at shortstop because he's legitimately
But they moved him.
Good.
They started moving him around too. You know,
yeah, he's played. I think he started 6
end.
games there in the minors, including 3 this year. So it's not like it was all completely new to him, but still relatively new. Should be able to make the adjustment there. I do like that he cut the strikeout rate last year at AA and held on to that improvement at AAA through 43 games this year. If you look at the games played totals year over year, you do see a lot of injuries costing Marcelo Mayer time at various points, and he's still been able to progress level to level, young for each stop. This is a guy that was once taken 4th overall in the 2021 draft. So plenty of things to like here. As a lefty, maybe he sits against tough lefties. That could be where he leaks a little bit of playing time. But if he hits, I think he's got the best chance of being the primary option until Bregman is back in the equation. And hopefully this injury is not as bad as the last one for Bregman, but that one keeps coming up just because they've been a little bit vague about the timetables so far. Another injury from the weekend, though. Michael King hit the IL with what they're calling shoulder inflammation. The way Mike Schilt was talking about it, it doesn't sound terrible. He said he got treatment and it got better. He threw a little bit with the plyo balls, still felt it. It's more of a we'll see as time unfolds situation per Schilt. So they don't think it's anything serious. We'll see what it turns into. I think it creates a little bit of a problem, though, for the Padres because Yu Darvish did not bounce back as expected after a rehab start nearly 2 weeks ago. Darvish pitched in a rehab game on May 14th, hasn't pitched in one since. Their best option to slot into this rotation after using a bullpen game over the weekend is probably Matt Waldron, 61 pitches in his last outing, and he could go later in the week as that replacement for Michael King. I think it's against the Pirates is the actual matchup they'll use him for next. So kind of a hold your breath situation, though, with Michael King, given his importance to this Padres rotation.
The Padres also announced that Kyle Hart will be recalled from AAA to start on Wednesday. I do not think that has a lot of fantasy relevance. But it does suggest that maybe they're just going to piece it together with Hart and Waldron and Kolek at the back end of that rotation. Kolek's been all right, but I would say that back end would be bottom third in the league, maybe. It's not what you want from a team that otherwise looks great.
No, I think you look at Dylan Cease for the year, he hasn't been himself just yet. It's kind of an important time for him to pitch more like the Dylan Cease we're accustomed to. That would go a long way right now. They have a good schedule this week. 3 at home against the Marlins and 3 at home against the Pirates. Then things get a little tougher. They get 4 on the road at San Francisco and 3 on the road in Milwaukee next week. So we'll see if they get a little healthier in these next couple of series. But if you had to lean on the back of this rotation against any 2 teams in the National League, other than catching the Rockies outside of Coors, I think they drew probably the 2 best series they could possibly have while they work through it.
They don't have another 40-plus rated pitcher. I mean, I say pitcher, maybe Cash Mayfield, but I believe he was their last year draft, and he doesn't have a player page yet. So I don't know what the story is there. I did find out what the story was with Burrows and his options. If anybody wants to know, he was hurt, and that cost him. He was put on the 40-man, and he was hurt that year, and that cost him an option year. So last year was the second option year. So this year is his third option year. But that's neither here nor there. I'm just looking through the starting pitcher options here. Isaiah Lowe is a 40 on Fangraphs. He's in A-ball. I don't see help on the way, and they've traded away so much. Like, what prospects could they trade away? Ethan Salas is hurt, and I think DeVries is sort of in that Jackson Merrill untouchable place in their hearts.
That's the sense I get. I think if you're the Padres, you're probably looking at the or as we call them, maybe old and boring, or the oatmeal options that you can find around the league. I mean, think about a guy like Adrian Hauser just popping up with the White Sox and getting some
Kyle
run.
Gibson's out there,
Something like
yeah.
that. Just someone to make a couple of starts, and you kind of reevaluate the roster after a couple of turns in the rotation.
Yeah, I don't know that they have a way out. The only other thing they could do is buy and sell at the same time, which I wouldn't put past Preller, which I guess in this case would look like something like trading away Dylan Cease for some prospects and then trading those prospects away for a pitcher or two pitchers, or I don't know. How would that work?
I don't think it would happen in season. I could see that being a little more of an off-season approach
idea.
where you're like, yeah, because they've done that before where it's like, we traded away Soto, but we added Michael King, or Dylan Cease, or you do things like that. So, you can try to spread out your talent that way if you do it more in the offseason. On the fly, I think that's a trickier way to try and go.
They're just stuck hoping King is all right because that's how their season goes. Those three being healthy and dealing.
Well, let's go to the good place. Let's pretend that Michael King's fine, and maybe he will be. Look at the big picture for a second. He's going to be a free agent this winter. As I understand it, he has a mutual option that he'll just decline because he's going to get paid big time as a free agent. Based on what we've seen from him as a starter during his time, mostly in San Diego, this began in 2023, second half with the Yankees. What kind of contract do you think Michael King is going to get once he hits free agency? He's imagining, I'm thinking like 5 years might be on the table and a big 9-figure sort of payout.
I think the name to circle among his comps is Blake Snell. I know they're not the same kind of pitcher, but what they represent to me is like basically 400 innings of excellent platform ERA, peripherals stuff, and a very spotty injury history otherwise. That's why they're comps for me. Not because of what they throw or anything related to stuff or anything like that. Just because of those two things. Excellent platform, but really some troubles putting up volume over the course of his career.
I know the age comp doesn't hold up, but just in terms of workloads and risk, I mean, Michael King to me is less risky than Garrett Crochet. Garrett Crochet is just 25, and he got the extension after the Red Sox acquired him from the White Sox this winter. King is 30. He just turned 30 a couple of days ago. So that kind of comp is different, right? We see younger pitchers get huge money when they come available or when they sign those kinds of extensions, like the Yamamoto free agency when he came over prior to 2024. Massive deal with the Dodgers.
Yeah,
right?
Crochet's going to get more money because he has more stuff and he's younger. And so even if you're risking the injury to the same degree or maybe even less, I mean, it depends also with your model, how much your model weights age over injury history. Because every injury model, as far as I can tell, has age, injury history, and stuff in it. Like your fastball velo, like there's those things improve your injury model. So as you can see, Crochet and King have different sliders in different places.
I'm looking at a leaderboard that goes back to July 1st of 2023, just to get a snapshot of most of the time that King has been a starter. 49 starts during that span, 15 relief appearances, but that's sort of when it began. If you make a leaderboard and just take a snapshot of all pitchers from that point forward.
Oh, top 3.
He's tied for 10th in Fangraphs WAR. But the guys ahead of him, Skubal, Wheeler, Logan Webb, Cole Reagans, Chris Sale, Dylan Cease, Sonny Gray's up there, Pablo Lopez is up there, and then Christopher Sanchez also in that group.
Yeah. I mean, he's been good. I can't, but I think the injury part is going to keep him from getting the Max Fried or the Garrett Cole. I think it's a higher injury risk than those guys.
Yeah, probably. I mean, yeah, I think that's one level too far. But you mentioned Blake Snell as a comp before. Snell got 5 and 182 from the Dodgers. Yeah. So that
I could see it being
upper bound is actually in range, you think, for King?
I mean, if it's the Dodgers themselves, then that AAV is possible. If it's somebody else, it'll be a lower AAV, maybe 6 years. So maybe like
six for
180
180 or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope for his sake, though, he is okay, given that this could be a big opportunity for Michael King to cash in. And I want to see where this Padres team can go with all hands on deck. Speaking of Tarik Skubal, this was pretty early for you because it was the featured Roku game on Sunday morning. Tarik Skubal was phenomenal against the Guardians last time out. Ended up being a complete game shutout, a 2-hitter. And I started digging into StatHead because I thought, wow, like what was this performance that I just witnessed? It was a Maddux, a complete game, fewer than 100 pitches with 13 strikeouts. That's hard to do. He was just pounding the zone, challenging Guardians hitters, and there was really nothing they could do against the reigning AL Cy Young Award winner. I put it into context by doing a search, and I came up with mostly no-hitters of similar game scores. Like, you're just not going to find performances like that. I feel like somehow at the beginning of this season, during draft season, I had unfair worry about Tarik Skubal because of the workload jump, the previous arm injuries, like thinking about how heavily he worked last year and then with the Tigers going to the playoffs. And man, he looks just as good as he did a year ago, if not better. It's unreal.
Yeah, it's crazy that he's added velo. But maybe this is all still part of ironing out his mechanics since, his last injury and coming back from that. He did give up a hit till the 6th inning. And I believe there was some discussion on Monday on the cast that they weren't even sure that was a hit, that it could have maybe been called another way. In the end, I do believe the Jose Ramirez single was a liner. He gave up 2 hits, but he also broke a record for the fastest pitch by a Tiger. And it was previously held by Justin Verlander. So I did have one little piece of shade I want to throw, which is, come on, Tigers. You were the team of Zumaya. Like, you guys, your starting pitchers on your fastball velo records? Come on.
Skubal threw it 102.6, man.
That's right. That's true.
That's a Verlander end of game finishing out an elite performance, sort of adrenaline boost that gets you the extra ticks. Yeah, I mean, that was absurd. And yeah, so my search was just for, since the start of 2001, the only 5 Madduxes that I could find with a game score of 95 plus. Skubal on Sunday, 3 no-hitters, Philip Humber, Edinson Volquez, and Domingo Germán, and a Chris Archer 1-hitter in 2015.
Wow.
Endless. That was it. To have a game score like that, it was.
That's so weird. There's something weird there.
In game
Those
score?
Are not good pitchers.
Oh, well, that's a no-hitter thing.
Yeah.
It's a no-hitter perfect game thing. It's just not, it's not reserved for elite talent. Which I'm not throwing shade at the guys that have done it.
It's the weirdest thing about it.
You have to be good enough to get there, good enough to have the job. Yeah, man. Like, it's just the way it is. But it is kind of a funny list when you look at it. But it was a weekend with a lot of Statcast stuff. So Skubal finishes off that game with a 102.6. Oneil Cruz hit a homer off of Logan Henderson at 122.9. Which was just bonkers to see. Like, Henderson just grooved a fastball right down the middle. Perfect spot for Oneil Cruz to just get all of it, and he hit it into the river.
That was maybe seconds after I accepted a trade, my Oneil Cruz for his Gunnar Henderson dynasty. Keep forever. It's just one of those things where okay. No, probably still a good idea. Hopefully.
Probably a trade that, 3 months ago, you couldn't have possibly got someone to accept. And that's not even throwing shade at Cruz. It was just a clear differentiation in their value in terms of how people would look at them. Henderson being a first rounder and redraft, and Cruz still being a prove it sort of guy. But okay, so now that we're almost 50 games into Cruz's season, it kind of feels like he's showing off a lot of the things we were hoping for. I'm guessing that's an OBP league and not an average league.
It's average and OPS. So
Average
it was
OPS,
a little bit of a
okay.
bet against his OPS because I do believe that his OBP will go down. This is, I think, we're just in the midst of a career year. He's 26 years old. He's doing everything right. And in the midst of a career year where he's still hitting 238. So I'm saying this is Gunnar Henderson in a downturn. I believe in Gunnar Henderson's batting average going forward. I believe in Gunnar Henderson's OBP going forward. And while Cruz may outslug him and outsteal him, one thing that I've found in these leagues, like a 12-team league where batting average and OPS are in there, is that it's kind of hard to keep your batting average and OPS high. You know, it's a little bit easier to find. Like maybe this is because I was rostering Christopher Morel, you know, but I kept finding all these Matt Wallner, you know, like I kept finding all these guys that we've talked about on Discord that were, you know, like Statcast darlings with bad batting averages, you know, and what I wasn't able to find on the wire was, you know, really solid hitter, keeps his batting average high, keeps his OBP high, does everything well, you know, because those guys are the very top prospects and you don't find them on the wire. And you know what I mean? And I've been fading prospects in that league. So this was the cost that it took, was me putting together my assets in terms of this is the best Statcast darling I found, you know, and I'm going to trade it for, it was a little bit of an anti-Statcast bet. So him hitting at 123, to some extent, I could laugh it off. Yeah, I mean, that's why I picked him up. That's why I had him in the first place. But I was willing to trade him because I wanted a more refined approach that I thought would just lead to better outcomes on a day-to-day basis. And we'll see if that plays out. But I do believe this really feels like the middle of a career year. And I think it's okay sometimes. It's really hard to trade somebody in the middle of a career year, but I don't feel terribly about it.
I think you got the safer floor long term, and you got younger by getting Henderson. So I completely understand why you did it. But to defend the Cruz side, I mean, he might steal 20 more bags in a typical year. And I think the average probably comes in closer to 260. Even the BADX projection wise has Cruz at 260 the rest of the way. So if he's a 260, 340, 500 slash line player with 40 to 50 steals and 20 to 25 homers, that's a first rounder too.
Yeah.
Just comes from different categorical balance. So, yeah, pretty fun weekend on the Statcast side. I also saw Ronald Acuna Jr. swing at the first pitch on Friday and homer off of it. It was nice to see that in his first game back off that ACL.
Not only did he homer off it, but he hit the ball 115.5, which, yes, in his awesome, MVP 2023 season, he hit a ball 121, but in that first year back, well, he hit a ball 116.6 too. So I don't know. It's harder than he hit a ball all last year, though. So I thought it was notable that he hit a ball super, super hard right off the bat. And I've already mentioned that his ground ball fly ball mix is a little bit different. So I'm betting that the power is going to be more in the 200 plus ISO range that it's been for most of his career. I'm also betting that he may steal 10 bags because he was a statue on the bases. Like there were definitely times when he could have stolen it and he did not.
Yeah, maybe it just takes a few months. Maybe by the time you get to August, you get closer to the playoff chase, he gets more comfortable. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it played out the way you described it, given that it was the second ACL tear. And both of those injuries occurred while he was running the bases. So there's understandable hesitancy as far as being aggressive goes in that regard. Hunter Green's back too, by the way. So a lot of good returns and things happening over the course of the weekend. Now it is our pleasure to be joined by Coach Joshua Rodrigues, going to help us break down some of the new swing data that dropped last week. As we talked about when we introduced it, there's going to be a lot of ongoing conversation about what to do with all that information. People like Josh are here to help us. Josh, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
So your background, coaching, teaching, it's all the things you need to take a lot of information like this and turn it into actionable information for the rest of us, right? Like take a bunch of inputs and like translate it and help us out. So I'm curious, with more at your disposal, what were some of the first things you wanted to do as you were digging into the data?
Yeah, I think the first thing I immediately thought about was just kind of like going back into like old articles, like we talked about, like with Eno's old one from like, it feels like a decade ago, talking about like contact out in front, like where are the home runs hit, stuff like that. I think for me, the first thing was like, what is kind of false and what is true, and what has been said in public that might have the ability to be like disproved in a lot of ways or confirmed. For me, that was the first thing. And then I kind of just started thinking in my head about just like putting guys into bins and clusters and what guys have similar characteristics to each other and how do those characteristics kind of like lead to different outcomes potentially. So we can have like an archetype or a prototype of a player based on their swing characteristics and try to navigate that was the first thing I immediately thought about when I realized that the data was coming out.
Yeah, we have this really cool graphic that you put together. It's actually two graphics, and on the left is it's showing the relationship between attack angle and contact point, so intercept point, right?
Yep.
And what you're showing is that the further out in front of the plate the batter hits the ball, the higher their attack angle is, the basically the higher the launch angle is going to be. Like the bat is addressing the ball. Attack angle is like sort of that last angle between the bat and the ball, like as it's coming up to it, as it's coming to the ball. So the bat is basically lifting the ball better out in front of the plate. And the second one shows that you pull the ball more out in front of the plate and you push the ball more over the plate. So that's talking about the depth of contact points. If your contact point is further out in front, you're more likely to lift the ball and pull the ball. If your contact point is deeper, you're more likely to hit it into the ground, into the opposite field. Am I characterizing these two correctly, you think?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think the best thing to think about this is if there's a right-handed batter up in this situation from these graphics, obviously righties are gonna, as they have follow through in their swing, right, the bat's gonna gradually come upward towards the shoulder, which makes sense. And then on the left, on the right, like you just said, obviously for a right-handed batter, as the swing's kind of coming through, they're gonna rotate around their axis, and the bat is obviously gonna spin around, leading to more of a pull bat angle in that, or I should say a pull direction in that situation.
Yeah, do you think about it, the bat's coming through, if you have a deep contact point, it'll be facing, as a right hand, it'll be facing right field, like more parallel with right field. And if it's a front out in front, your batter's gonna be more parallel with left field.
Yeah, so I think you guys have been kind of you guys have kind of been spot on. I think Jed talked about it last time about it being a timing metric in some way. And I think for a lot of ways that is true. I just think that if you get caught and the ball's getting so deep on you, you really don't have a chance to finish the swing in a lot of different ways. So the guys who are catching the ball in front, they're basically maximizing their potential to, one, pull the ball, and then two, hit the ball in the air. So that's why that contact point, I think, is going to be a bigger conversation, I think, right away for the bat metrics and just the data in general that's come out.
As a coach, when you've worked with different players, have you found any one of these things a little bit more coachable? To me, it seems like I've been wanting to kind of stay away from attack angle and ideal attack angle because I feel like that's something you could change. It's almost like the grip on a pitch or something. It's like, hey, I feel like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like one of the easiest cues you could give a batter who's doing everything right except for one little thing is like, hey, go get that ball. That's sort of what I do with my kids. If he's late, I say, go get that ball. If he's early, I say, like, let it travel a little bit, And I feel like that's one of the few cues you can actually have where you're like, it's about timing. You're going to go get that ball. Like you would just be more aggressive or be less aggressive. It's a little bit different for me than being like, be less scoopy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Have you been able to, when you're working with coaching people, have you been able to see some difference in contact point and sort of coach contact point around a little bit?
I think honestly, it's really hard for a player. A lot of these bad metrics, what I found over the past 4 years, 3 years, has been that they're really hard to change. I think that like the way that Driveline has gone about changing bat speed, I think we'll eventually going to see that shift a little bit. I just don't know if at this moment in time, if there's maybe there is, but there's an actual focus on like trying to change somebody's attack angle, or I think I shouldn't say that all the way, because there are examples of like Corbin Carroll who's trying to get a little bit more, who's trying to change some stuff around. But I don't think it's as drastic as people probably imagine it to be. I think that for the most part, coaches try to stay away from trying to cue a guy to like go get the ball, because what happens is now you trying to move this contact point out, it's going to have other ramifications for the swing. I think they're really hard to change. And I think attack angle might be the easiest one along with bat speed. But I think vertical bat angle, especially, I should say swing path tilt. Yeah, is definitely going to be the hardest one to shift in a player. I think a lot of this is really difficult to move around. I think a lot of it really comes down to having like a swing signature in a lot of ways, where you do these like 5 things that are kind of like this right here, and this is how we can kind of move you around a little bit.
Yeah, our friend Dominique on Discord talks about how he thinks that swing path tilt, like a lot of that has to do with side bend, which has to do with your innate ability to move, like your innate ability, like your like flexibility to have like, I don't have a better word for that, but you know what I mean, like your ability that might be really hard to change. Like some people are just a little bit stiffer and can't necessarily manipulate that tilt like that, and some guys are just like kind of whippier. I've always just loved like a Tatis type, because I'm like, that looks like a body that can change in space, what I mean? And so that's just a personal bias. But anyway, so we've established here is that there's a relationship between contact point and your attack angle. So you have to be careful when you're analyzing attack angle. I think especially if it's changing over the course of a week or two, what that means. And if they're like ideal attack angle percentage, I want to give that some space to feel like before I start circling players and picking them up because they have that. But you started binning guys. And I found this really interesting. Before we throw up the graphic, there's like these 3 words in your bins. Tell me what the 3 words mean.
Yeah, so the 3 of them are going to be, I based them off of high power, low power. I just said about dichotomy, right? It's way more gray.
Bat speed, basically.
Bat speed, yeah. Yep, high power, low power, bat speed. Second one is going to be steep and flat for attack angle. So guys who have these upward attack angles, guys who are probably catching a little bit deeper. And then the third one is going to be for swing path tilt. And that's guys who are going to be flatter and guys who are going to be a little bit more scoopy, what you're describing. And basically, I tried to make 8 bins out of them. That's all the combinations. I think one of the bins didn't end up populating with anybody or a small number of players. But yeah.
Tell me about one group that I don't understand.
Yeah.
How can a player be high-powered, flat, steep? I believe that is maybe the best combination.
So you're saying high power, steep, and flat. So they're going to have high bat speed. They're going to have an upward swing, and they're going to be flat. With their actual bat path is going to be flatter. So they're going to be like their actual bat.
So they have high tilt. They have high tilt. They're going to have
their bat is going to be a moving upward, but it's going to be flat.
So they're not getting the ball out in front as much necessarily. They're high tilt, but they're
I think they're going to be flat. So when I say flat, I mean their actual bat path tilt. They're going to be coming across the zone in a flat path, but it's going to be moving upward, if that makes sense. I think these guys in general are going to be high attack angle. They're going to be flat across the zone with their path itself. I think an example of this, just as I'm going through the bins here, if I can find one, O'Neal Cruz, Jordan Walker, Pete Alonso, Kyle Stowers, Kyle Schwarber, their bats, like you can almost picture their bat is not going to be this super vertical, like line drive hitter. They're going to be more boom bust guys is the way I think about them. Because as the bat's moving through the zone flat, there's not a real margin for error. It's probably going to be a lot of pop-ups, or they're going to just be flushed up and absolutely destroyed.
Who's tilted? So let's throw that thing up again. So here are the bins.
Yep.
And so we were just talking about the Stowers group. Was that high power steep tilted? No, that was
steep flat.
That was steep flat. Okay.
Steep flat.
So they hit pop-ups and they swing and miss, but when they barrel it, it goes far. They barrel it hard. So they're kind of like your prototypical power hitters that may go in and out, right?
Yeah. So Layers in that pocket.
Yeah.
You have Julio Rodrigues in that pocket.
Oh, there you go.
So
tell me about high power steep tilted then.
All right, high power steep tilted. These are going to be, I think, the dudes here. You're going to have Ohtani, Judge, Casas. You're going to have Harper in that bin, Corey Seager in that bin. And basically, these guys are just line drive hitters who are catching the ball upward with probably higher attack angles than usual and have a ton of bat speed, so they're able to generate the power that they need.
So they lift the ball all the time. They hit line drives.
Yep.
And they have a fair amount of swing and miss.
Anytime that you see that tilted, that's going to be a ton of line drives here. But then you're going to have the power incorporated with high bat speed and the upward swing for the attack angle. So you're basically going to have this trifecta of high power, upward swings, and line drives coming with the tilted bat.
Yeah, Ohtani got this weird thing, though, where he lets the ball travel. Does he still have a high attack angle despite letting the ball travel?
Yeah, so I can pull up his graphic. Ohtani, I can tell you it's going to be a high attack angle. Yeah, so it's going to be
a high attack angle, even though he lets it travel. That's amazing.
Yeah, so he's going to be a 75 miles an hour, let's call it average bat speed, 15-degree attack angle, so upward. And then he's going to be 36 degrees tilted. So that's going to be pretty severely tilted. Yeah.
And then tell me about high power flat. That seems to be like the Tampa Bay Rays to some extent.
Oh, yeah.
They love that.
That's going to be a Rays.
Yandy Diaz.
Yeah. Yep. That's going to be, so I can tell you.
Junior Caminero's in there too, right?
Yep. So we got Manny Machado, Corbin Carroll. You're going to have Yandy Diaz, Yanier Diaz, Christian Walker. So guys who are going to be high, flat, think about them as having high bat speed. Their attack angle is going to be a little bit flatter, so they're not going to be moving through the zone as upward. And then they're going to be flat, which is, again, going to be that boom bust kind of profile, where you're going to have guys, their line drive rate's probably going to be a little bit lower. They're going to probably have a lot more pop-ups.
Pop balls up, yeah.
Yeah, it's with that flat bat. The minute that you get flat with the bat, the ball really doesn't have much, like I said, room for error. It's either going to clip and go up in the air, or it's going to go down. Whereas if you have more
or you
vertical,
hit it flush and it goes really hard, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Whereas the vertical guys, if you miss left, if you miss to the open side here, you're going to have a single to the right field. If you miss to the inside, you're going to have a single to left field, basically. And if you flush it, it's going to go a long way.
That's just right.
So much of this sounds like wholesale adjustments you'd have to make in an off season. You know, like I feel like the more I learn about hitting, the harder it would be to tweak something significant during the year. Like if you're lost at the plate mid-season, finding your way back is just getting back to old habits. It's not developing completely new ones. Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, and I think it was funny. One good story was we had a guy, a hitting coach in Memphis when I was in Norfolk, and the hitting coach talked about how he'd always want his guys to catch the ball as deep as he can and just foul one like way off to the right field line, or just absolutely just try to catch it as far out as you possibly can. I think it just illustrates that, right? It's like you couldn't be caught up in the middle here. Your timing could be a little bit off, and just making sure that you can somehow like adjust that timing window, I guess, is going to be a big one for them. But yeah, I think changing this stuff it takes a long time, I'm going to assume.
If you were, looking at a young player that hadn't established themselves, and they were, extreme in some way or another, I'm thinking of, like a Justin Henry Malloy has a 41 degree tilt. Andy Pages is 41-degree tilt.
Yeah.
Then you've got on the other side, you've got, I don't know, who's a young player that's still on the way up. You've got Agustin Ramirez with a 25-degree tilt. If I had to force you to choose just based on tilt, Jackson Chourio, 26. Even Gunnar Henderson's tilt isn't great. What would you rather? What side of that board would you rather be on?
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think it's like you end up in this spot where there's trade-offs between the two, obviously. I think the more tilted guys, you're going to have more of to me at least, I think the ceiling for those tilted guys is going to be a little bit like higher in terms of their like batted ball production in some way. And I agree with your actual assessment of like those flat guys with the swing path tilt are going to be boom bust, where, you're going to have these like probably outlier moments, and then you're going to have a lot of like probably streaks that end up getting popped in there. So for me, if I had to make a decision, I'd probably say tilted. To me, that classic look of the tilted swing that's going to be working through instead of this flat path. I think that a lot of teams have gone to the flat path because it was just easy. I think it's easier to acquire those guys, and I think that those guys are probably going to be more available in the market in some way. If you're going to be really looking at the bat, I think getting vertical is a really hard thing to do for players. I don't think it's an easy task to do. That's why you see guys like Corbin Carroll, who I'm pretty sure was trying to get more vertical because he was too flat.
That's true.
So I just think that it's a hard market, and I think that the flat guys are they're more freely available. And again, like if they have a good walk rate, maybe if they have a flat bat path, you can get that 5-10% more out of them potentially.
Yeah. And I think if you add, this is something that Jen was talking about a little bit. I think if you add the ability to swing the bat fast and be tilted, and if you want to be greedy, like, we have people who are listening who are in 10, 12 team leagues or whatever. If you want to be greedy, I think, a tilted bat path with bat speed and good bat to ball, that's like that. I think if you find that in a young player, it's really hard to find someone who isn't good who's doing that. So just to tell you, who even does the first two, which is swing the bat fast and have a big bat tilt. I changed the numbers on the swing chart so that you have 10 minimum swings. So, Gage Workman, 72 mile an hour bat speed. That's right, like just a little bit better than average, 45 tilt, but does not have the bat to ball. Mm-hmm. Andy Pages, bat speed, good tilt, not great bat to ball. James Wood, great bat speed, great tilt, not great bat to ball. I don't know much about Carson McCusker, but he's got that. Zach DeCenzo has that and may have the opportunity to add, like his bat to ball is not terrible. Spencer Torkelson right now is showing this kind of grouping. And then it's Aaron Judge, Eugenio Suarez, Ronald Acuna Jr., Nick Kurtz. So there's a lot of good players in there. Kobe Mayo is on this list. So, I think if you were kind of scouting the numbers, a 74 mile an hour bat speed and like a 38 plus tilt or a 36 plus tilt, you get a lot of good players that way. Right? It seems like that, and that would be in your two best groupings. They'd be in your high power tilted. Yeah. In either steep tilted and then you can play around with attack angle and see who's in steep tilted or who's in flat tilted. But those are your two best groups, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, those two for sure. Yeah.
That's interesting.
I just think that the high bat speed is such a just an outlier trait for so many guys I think that's really what's pushing guys, and then the other bat metrics are like secondary options for them, kind of enhancing their skills that they already have, or the bat speed that they already have.
And I think the next level for us is we're really gonna have to dial in where we're taking these bat metrics and like associating them, like taking out the effect of pitch location, pitch type, that sort of stuff, because you are going to adjust your bat. You're going to adjust your location, your intercept point. You're going to adjust a lot of that stuff based on the pitch coming in. and so we can get to more innate numbers like that. But I do think that what makes it so difficult for teams to have good bat path metrics that they believe in is that it's possible they put too many features in. Just looking at what you're talking about here, I'm starting to feel like, that focusing on fewer metrics that have more single in them rather than, I think a lot of the machine learning approach is like, throw all the features in and see which ones move the needle and possibly overfit and have these things that are being driven by like bat speed alone. I feel like you could build a team where you're just like, hey, all I want is a bunch of people who swing the bat like donkeys. You might do well. You might do better than other teams are like, but we're turning all the dials here and we're going to figure it out. It's like, can you swing the bat hard is a huge question. Like if you could answer two questions for me, can you swing the bat hard and can you make contact? I think I run a better team than maybe, people who are trying to, turn these dials too hard. So I don't know. I wonder where you feel about that. I mean, it's all very exciting, but we have to be careful about when we're throwing these things in. Like, what if we're throwing an attack angle in, and it's something that changes all the time, and it's not something that has that much signal and noise in it. That's the next part of the work, right?
I mean, even for me, right? They released attack direction. Besides that one, I didn't include attack direction in the clustering because I just felt like it was going to start. It was going to just start to get like too noisy, where you're not going to have a clear idea of like actually what's important and what's driving, these bins or whatever it might be. Because then it just gets really messy. Where like, okay, if I have this, that, and this, I can kind of group them and get a better idea of what's happening here.
Right.
And in the potential, like to select the players or to look at the players or to analyze the guys based on those, I think is probably, I would agree with your take of like throwing in a bunch of stuff isn't always the best thing.
Yeah, right. Spaghetti wall technique.
Yeah.
But
sometimes you only need 4 ingredients and you don't need 10. Like it just depends what you're making.
Especially when all these things are correlated. You know, like what you just brought up, spray direction or attack direction and attack angle and an intercept point. They're all the first graph showed it. They're all intertwined. So it's kind of hard to just don't throw them all in, because it's almost like when we did stuff, everyone's like, do you have a vertical approach angle in there? I'm like, no, we have the things that make vertical approach angle. If we put vertical approach angle in, then we're double counting vertical approach angle. So I almost feel that way about attack angle, and I love that you said that about attack direction, because that's attack direction could be just a result of these other things,
right? That
we're putting.
And I think honestly too, it's all dependent upon where the guy is making contact in the zone. If it's a high pitch or a low pitch, like everything kind of depends on everything with the bat metrics. And I think a lot of teams have gone the way of hiring really smart people who might be physicists or biomechs who have this like really ingrained knowledge of like what's happening to try to understand these better. I think the public is just getting that first bite of the apple, I think, right now. And I think that you'll probably see a ton here come out, hopefully, over the next, 3 months, 4 months as the baseball season goes along.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I was just looking at it, and I was interested to find out that I looked at the high tilt guys, and they did better low in the zone, than high in the zone, which didn't surprise me. But then the flat guys didn't necessarily do better high in the zone than low in the zone.
When I made a quick model just looking at the mean run value change, and it was like guys who were more tilted were definitely better, like a little bit lower, whereas that flat swing with the swing path tilt can't really get to those balls so far down. They're almost like limited to this like middle upper area that they have access. The way I really can think about it is like, where do they have access to the zone? Like guys who are more tilted kind of can cover a lot more ground. Guys who are flatter are more stationary, with this upper.
Well, what also is messing it up is the decision to swing or not. Because if you are really well disciplined and you have a flat bat path, Juan Soto, then you may not look that bad low in the zone because you're not swinging at them. And so you're getting a lot of balls and stuff, like you might be making the right swing decision, but not being able to do much with those balls. So that's where this last stuff, like your swing decisions, affect what you can do. Like they kind of intertwine, and like,
right.
Yeah, we're going to have to kind of pull those things apart as much as we can, but really fascinating stuff.
One more question for you before we let you go, Josh. When bat speed data became public last year, we started looking at it and thinking, okay, there's like your A swing when you're trying to hit for a lot of power. Maybe a B swing is your 2-strike approach. Maybe you'd see even a third group for some guys. But the more we get access to different types of information, is it possible that guys actually have like 4 or 5 different swings they might utilize based on where they're being pitched or what they're trying to accomplish in a given situation? Like,
and before you answer real quick, Jed's alternate theory is that everybody just has an A swing. There are just 9 different contact points. So I don't know if they're both the same answer, or like where do you feel you'd land on that spectrum?
I think that the game calls for hitters to handle heaters, balls that are coming down, running in on them, breaking away from them. So, and hitters have to face righties and lefties. So it's like 4 combinations in my mind. And so I agree with Jed. I think that there's probably something where you have 1 swing, 8 contact points. But I also think that the game asks you to handle these different pitches and the movement profiles of these pitches with your swing. So the ability to have 3 or 4 swings, depending on what's happening, I think is actually a fair assessment. And I think that it's honestly definitely an area that could be a thing. I don't think it's like a 0, but I don't know if it's 100%. Because I'm assuming there is going to be something that comes out here eventually that is going to say on sliders, when a player makes contact here, X, Y, and Z, this is the best outcome, or this is an idealer outcome than what you might.
I bet you we're gonna have guys that we describe. These guys have different swings. Like we will be able to be like, these guys can alter their swing more than other guys.
Even just real quick on I was playing around with it. Guys who were facing heaters, it was like their attack angle was lower, which makes sense, right? On the fastball, and it was further out in front on curveballs and sliders. And so like even just stuff like that, where like you can see it, right? There's going to be these little dials that guys are going to be trying to turn depending on the pitch, right? If I'm a righty and I have a slider coming into me, I'm going to need to twist I'm going to have my attack direction try to match that plane, right? And whereas if I have a changeup where it's going to be working in, I might want to go with more of a pushy swing potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's almost like all of those adjustments, they're not things you're consciously thinking about as you're becoming a player. They're
not like swing B,
what's happening.
Engage.
Yeah, no, it's just like you see different situations and your body develops these patterns and abilities to adjust accordingly. It's not like I'm going to sit here and develop 6 different swings. It's not. I don't think it's like that. I think it's adjustment upon adjustment over time that gives you different abilities to different things.
I think this is part of why teams have gone to really competitive training environments, because they realize that, if you sort of develop your swing in a clinical environment that's sort of like repeat this motion over and over again, it's not engaging what Derek is talking about. You're not being like, oh, this is a 2-seamer away. You have to be quick on. You have to 2-seamer away. I do this. Sink slider down. I do this.
There's a reason why the Marlins were trying to bring in amateur pitchers into their facilities the last few months, and I think that kind of tells the story, right? Is like they obviously know that there are these competitive training environments that they need, with all the demands that the game's putting on you. But I think you're spot on. It's split-second decisions, and I think you fall to the level of your training.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Practice like you play, I think, is what we always used to say back in my coaching days. And the more you can replicate that, I think the better you are in the long run. Josh, before we let you go, let our listeners know where they can read you and where they can follow you on social.
Oh, man, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Coach Rodrigues 2, I think, on Blue Sky. I think you can just look for my name, Joshua Rodrigues. And if you want to follow along, I run a Substack, Foundations on the Field. We just go over some funny plays that happen that are weird, write a lot about player development and just all different things that have to do with baseball.
All right. We appreciate your time and your insight today. We look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thanks guys. Appreciate it.
All right, it's time for Where the Money Went. We'll do a shortened version, of course, because we're a little tight on time, smushing 2 episodes into one. Who were you chasing as free agent pickups over the weekend?
In my main event, I got Daniel Palencia. We paid $75 for him to be our third closer, dropping Matt Strahm. And Matt Strahm may still end up closing over there. I had a discussion with Chad Young about reliever strategy, and I wanted to just really quickly sum up what I've seen as the best research. And I would love to just send you links, but it'll take too long. And I don't even remember these links I've acquired over time. I've been reading forever. I know Derek Carty, who looked at all sorts of stats and found that the only thing that was predictive of future saves was past usage. Also past roll. So like holds to get
being
saves.
Set up guys. Yeah, sure.
Were you the 8th inning guy? Then you're the 9th inning guy. Jack Moore used to work at Fangraphs, is now I think he maybe has a day job, but he's a gamer. And I still Jackie Peanuts on Twitter. He found that past closers threw harder, new closers threw harder and struck out more batters than the guys they replace. Boom. Okay. So that fuels my stuff usage. That fuels a lot of the way that I think about things. Third one is, and I don't remember at all where I saw this, but I saw an analysis that said that teams don't generally try to save money on closers, that they basically just use the best pitchers they can in a closer. And the way that leverage index is created, I know this is a theoretical argument, but the way that leverage index is created, naturally the highest leverage outs are going to be in the 9th. Now, does that mean that's true and that there aren't maybe bigger moments that are earlier in the game? I don't know, but you have to be winning the game in the 9th to get to those high leverage moments, right? So like, I think, and this is where I get a little bit anecdotal, I think the best pitchers close.
Generally,
so
yes.
That's my strategy. Now, the Phillies are a little different. They've done things in the past, right? Where they've been like, oh, you brought in Carlos Estevez to close when Jeff Hoffman is better, maybe? They've done this sort of stuff in the past. But just looking at that, I would say Romano's already slipping. They already tried to use Strahm in one, and then Strahm blew it. So I stick with my original read, which is I think Ryan Kerkering is on maybe a slow path, but on the path towards taking that job. But Palencia has the job now, I think.
Right. And that's been an open question with this Cubs team. We thought it was going to be Porter Hodge. They made the trade for Ryan Presley. Palencia has been good. Model likes him. 115 stuff plus. Fine by location. 100 location plus. Results, you want to go analog, 26.4% K rate, 9.7% walk rate. That walk rate being career best it's just all good. It's all fine.
He's not immediately like a top 10 closer. But like
no, but this is kind of like just in terms of core skills and getting an opportunity. This is like a David Bednar situation for me. Maybe Bednar's got slightly better stuff than Palencia had, or at least peak Bednar did. But if he's a tier 3 closer right now and he keeps the job, he could peak as a top 10 guy eventually. Like that's in the range of outcomes for Palencia. So we did see some big numbers on him. For you to get him in the, like you said, the 70s, that's pretty good. I saw him go as high as 216 in the RotoWire Online Championship because people are desperate for saves.
Bednar was available in our league as well, and that may have helped us because Bednar went for 150.
Really? That's surprising. I mean, you got a shot at the closer on a first place team. And I realize with the trade deadline 2 months away, the Cubs could be in the market for multiple relievers, and it could be a short-term solution, but you can worry about that 2 months from now. If you think Palencia is good enough to have the job at least for 2 months, then you've got a second or third closer for the next 50 games. That will still carry some weight. But Bednar is Bednar back? I mean, if you look at their last 3 saves, Santana got 1, Bednar got 2, and they're the Pirates. They don't generate a ton of them.
He's mostly back. I think he's the closer. I think he has command issues. I think it's like command issues that don't even only show up in walks. It's like sometimes he just loses his secondaries, and if he's all fastball, I don't think he has quite enough fastball to do that. So I would say he's a bottom 5, bottom 10 closer, but I think he's a closer. Marcelo Mayer was the big name.
Mm-hmm.
He went everywhere. I didn't get him. I just wasn't sure. I just wasn't sure. I didn't like. He went for 187 in TGFBI, and I wasn't willing. And I think if there's a name left that I'm willing to go to big numbers to, is maybe Jack. I'm in love with Jack. I'm all over Jack Caglione, and I think he's got to be coming soon.
They started to set it up. They DFA'd Hunter Renfroe.
I know, but the second move isn't there yet. How about the big pitching name was Zebby Matthews, was it not? Is that the big name?
Yeah, I think in 12 teamers especially, where even in 15s where he was available, 177 was the high bid in the RotoWire Online Championship. Zebby got back into the rotation over the weekend, had a start against the Royals, and it didn't go great. 4 innings, 2 earned. Well, it was a mixed bag. It was only 4 innings, but he got 9 Ks. So we saw that ceiling, right? Like we saw that potential yet again from Zebby Matthews.
Yeah, there's a problem for me for Zebby Matthews, and it has nothing to do with stuff. I mean, I like his fastball slider cutter combination. The slider is excellent. I think the command is decent. The reason I got beat 92 to 57 in TGFBI out of 1,000 for Zebby Matthews was because of usage.
Mm-hmm.
They do not use him, like they do not let him go. They do not let him pitch. I don't know how to say it. Like they don't let him go more than 80 pitches. I'm trying to find the pitches one here. Here, the most he's ever thrown is 92 pitches, and that was last year in August. The second most he's ever thrown is 89, and this year the most he's ever thrown is 81.
Yeah, the whole game log during his time in the big leagues is brutal. He's got 4 appearances where he's gone 5 innings. He's never gone more than 5. And in each of his last 5 appearances, he's gone less than that. He hasn't faced more than 20 batters in a major league game since September 6th of last year. So you're right about the usage concerns.
He has 1 win. And it's not because he hasn't pitched well. It's just he has 1 win.
And some of that's the bullpen, though, too, right? They've got a good deep bullpen. So they're going to be extra careful when they can be. And I guess they feel like Matthews starts are one of those days where they can lean into their depth a little bit.
Yeah, I couldn't go to 100 plus for him for that, or even 92. I was stuck. I was on the group chat being like, I'm stuck somewhere in 50 to 70%, 5 to 7%, and I can't. So I just 57. That wasn't enough.
No, not quite enough. There's been a lot of hype on this show about Zebby Matthews, and I get it, but it's caught in the middle right now is where he seems to be in terms of role. It's like they need to have a game with a big lead where they just let him go a couple of times, let him go a little further. He can show that he's effective that third time through the order, maybe earn that trust a little bit. But I feel like the circumstances have to line up for that chance to actually happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And, one name that was not popular that I think I went 3 for 3 on getting was Colton Gordon. And I've sort of made my case in the past, but I see a little bit of a Chris Bubich starter package here, a little bit wider arsenal even than Bubich, but he's got that slow hook that he has good command of. He has a 362 Sierra. I'm not making the case here to go spend a lot of money on Colton Gordon or get him in a 10 and 12 teamer, but in a 15 teamer, I believe he will have use. And I think he'll be the kind of guy you want on your roster. You don't start all the time. I just saw enough polish there. It's like, he's 26. He's older than his years almost. And you just watch him and you're like, oh, this is a guy who knows what he's trying to do, does not have excellent stuff, but, can kind of lull people to sleep with his stuff. I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to say exactly why I like Colton Gordon. I guess I'll just stick with that Sierra. Also, he was cheap. It's part of why I like him. My average winning bid for him was $13. And I'm happy to take that to the bank. The other thing that I noticed this week that I thought was useful for a lot of people, and this is something you should remember when you are doing well, sometimes you think, I don't have to make any moves. This is the kind of move you should make. This weekend, Matt Wallner, Noelvi Marte, Sean Manaea, I bought these guys all in different teams, and I bought them all for like $3 to $6 out of 1,000 because it's a week before they're going to be available.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do think the teams where things are going well are exactly the right spot because it probably means you can burn a bench spot. You're probably not banged up on those
Yeah.
teams. So you can afford a week this week where you get nothing from those players in anticipation of getting them back a week from now, possibly 2 weeks from now, if the ceiling is high enough. The last player I'm going to ask you about before we go, Trevor Rodgers came back. It was part of a doubleheader. He got sent back down right away afterwards, but 6 1/3 scoreless, 5 Ks, no walks, just 2 hits on the road at Fenway. I mean, imagine the next time the Orioles need someone in that rotation, which shouldn't take long. Trevor Rodgers probably gets that look. I did notice, I pulled up his game log on Fangraphs, just spanning back to post-trade deadline of last season. That was the best stuff and location number that we've seen from Trevor Rodgers since the Orioles made that trade with the Marlins.
Yeah, but sadly, it's only just getting back to where he was when he wasn't even his best with the Marlins. You know what I mean? It's like getting back to 2023 Trevor Rodgers when he had like a 4 ERA and a 1.22 whip. Like, do I believe now that he can be a league average starter? Maybe. Yeah. I mean, he got the velo back to 93.6. There was a moment in 2021 when he had 94.6, and he struck out 28.5% of the batters he saw. Trevor Rodgers did. I don't think that's coming back.
Now, that seems like it's never coming back, but even if they get a league average type starter out of him, that will help them a lot given their needs in that organization. I still kind of wonder what it was that led them to make that trade, not because of the success of Stowers and Norby, but more just because of wanting to know what the Orioles could fix in him, right? Like, yeah, they had excess. They traded from their excess. I'm not here to roast them for that. I just want to know what they thought they could change or how they thought they could possibly get him back closer to the early career, the 2021 version of Rodgers, as you suggested. But there's your other guy that came back, pitched well, and had to go back down because it was an extra call-up for that doubleheader on Saturday. We are going to go on our way out the door. A reminder, you can join our Discord with the link in the show description. Thanks again to Coach Josh Rodrigues for joining us on today's episode. Thanks to our producer, Brian Smith, putting this one together. You can find Eno on Blue Sky, enosaris.bscott@social, imdvr.bscott@social. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Wednesday.
Thanks for listening.